Well, welcome to the first BZ principal of the 25-26 school year. This year, we're going to be going through the book, The Leadership Challenge, the book that weighs more than any other book that I've ever lifted in my life, even more than a biology textbook. So we'll be going through that chapter by chapter, topic by topic. There are 5 topics in the book. One is model the way, the others inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. So that will be the topics that we go through starting in October. We'll start with model the way, and then we'll just work our way through. Today is just an entry or an introduction to this of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think you have to start at that level of what is leadership. So we can't use the term CU Lead anymore because it is a new initiative by the School of Business. So we are calling it BZ Leadership. Fits better anyway. So I'm happy with that. So when you look at leadership, I'm going to give you a definition a little bit, but you have to tie in our culture. So our culture is providing extraordinary effort and striving for excellence. So let me give you, first of all, some facts about leadership. Leadership is not a position or a title. Now, do leaders sometimes have positions or titles? Absolutely. Will you be a high-level leader? I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not at the top of Cedarville's organization, so I don't have a high-level leadership position. Leadership is more of a mindset, and it's more of an approach. And I think where we fail the world and where we fail the church and where we fail communities and our families is thinking that leadership is because you've obtained a position or a title. And that is 100% false. Because leadership is these 3 words, and we'll get into the definition right now. It's the idea of stewardship, it's the idea of influence, and it's the idea of service. So if you were to Google, don't do it right now, or ChatGPT, don't do that either. Give me a definition of leadership. There would be several. Probably several thousands of definitions of leadership. People's have tweaked it. But looking and doing study over the last maybe 20-some years, this is the definition that we came up with as a division when we had CU Lead and we did the conference. We came up with this definition. It's the stewardship of one's God-given gifts, abilities, and opportunities. So, first of all, the first word we're going to look at is stewardship of your God-given gifts, abilities, and opportunities. I want to challenge you on this, is that you will never have a position that is not given to you. Think about that for a second. Husband, wife, that is given to you because the other person said yes. Father, that is given to you because God has allowed you to have children or to be able to adopt a child or something like that. A position in a business, that has been given to you. Dr. White's position has been given to him by the Board of Trustees. The President of the United States was given that position based upon the electorate. And the idea that God says in Scripture, who is the one that puts people in leadership? It's God. God controls the hearts and the minds of kings. So the idea, if you look at Scripture that way, you see the real truth of leadership, that it's about an attitude and a mindset and not a position, because it says leaders are put in. It doesn't say that leaders are the king. Leaders are the emperor or anything like that. So starting with that, you've got to get rid of those myths that you think that leadership is just a position or a title. So leaders also seek to influence and serve others. So influence is the next word. So the idea of influence is that it's the people that you get influenced by, the people that you influence, and then the last one is serve. So those 3 words that we're going to look through today is stewardship, influence, and service. Here's a couple statements I want to give you about leadership. The world needs you to practice leadership. And what I mean by that is the world needs you to step up and not be just a consumer, but be a participant in the process. Like I tell people all the time that our youngest, Ethan, is probably the most gregarious of all of us. And the one thing, we got an email about Ethan the other day from his band director saying this kid is so kind, he's always smiling and things like that. And it's just like, that's leading me, because there are times I go home and I don't really want to be kind today. I don't want to smile today. But then here comes Ethan walking in the door. When he was a little kid, he would always wake up in the morning, he's 2 or 3, and he's like, it's a new day. And I says, there are certain people like that that lead you even though you're supposed to lead them. What if we had that? So the world needs it, your family needs it, your friends need it. What if your friend groups, you guys started leading each other? Because there are times in friend groups that some friends are hurting, right? There might even be in some of your friend groups today somebody that is struggling with something in life or things. And what if you as a friend led in that group by your service, by your influence, by not allowing gossip? Just think about what could happen. Your church needs you to be a leader. Do you know that 20% of the people do 80% of the work in the church? You would think that that stat would get better over the years, but it hasn't. It's gotten worse. So what if you were the person that realized that God's given me the ability, maybe it's like at Dayton Avenue, I have the opportunity to run sound. Maybe it's the opportunity to run sound, and that's my way of serving at the church. Yeah, I'm not going to ever speak. I'm not going to ever preach. You're never going to give me a microphone to sing. But the whole idea of that is I can do something, and that's stewardship of that. Your employer needs you to lead. Now, that's us now, but when you get out into the hospital, the schools, the businesses, the laboratories, wherever God puts you, the idea of that is they need you to step up and not just be a worker, but a knowledge worker. Peter Drucker, who is a management guru, says that the world doesn't need you to punch a time card. It needs you to be a knowledge worker so that when you go in, you understand your role, you understand the job, you understand your customer or your guest, and you go and serve them. Just imagine what businesses would look like. But more importantly, imagine what kind of opportunities you would have to put the beauty of Christ on display and a gospel opportunity. Your community needs you to be a leader. And that is really, really true. So the questions that I have for you before we go into each 3 of these is like, okay, what does it take to be a leader? That was one. And then how can I actually be that Bravo Zulu, that idea of striving for excellence, provide extraordinary effort? I believe the answer is in the definition. So the definition, stewardship, influence, and service. So we're going to look at that, and then we'll have times for questions, but let's just jump right in. So starting with stewardship. So in the definition, it says that leadership is a stewardship of one's God-given gifts, abilities, and opportunities. Webster would define stewardship as this: the foundation and the beginning of leadership. It's also the opportunity that is you're managing, you're controlling, but you don't own. I think a lot of times the reason why we're lazy, I know for me, is like, well, this is mine. It only matters what I do. Everything you have is not yours. It's a stewardship. Go back to the parable of the talents. 5, 3, and 1. The one, I really get intrigued by the parable of the one. He's like, Master, I knew you. I knew that you were a hard man. I knew you were a shrewd businessman, and I was afraid. I knew you did not want us to lose money, so I was afraid and did nothing with it. I would say that the majority of us in this room, that is the mindset we have when we think of stewardship. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to fail. I don't want to try. Because what if I do mess up, fail? Well, failure's not final. It's not fatal. You're going to fail. You're going to learn from that. So with the mindset of stewardship, it opens you up to have the ability to take risk. But it also opens you up to realize that everything that you have is given to you by God. And when you have that mindset and you realize that God is the one who's given you a spouse, and God is the one who's given you a family, and God is the one who's given you a job, and God is the one who's given you the opportunity, as a Christian, automatically it should drive you to be extraordinary. It should drive you to be excellent. So a couple of things. Stewardship is there to protect and develop. Stewardship is a perspective. So it is a paradigm shift in the world today. You would be countercultural to view things as a stewardship and not an ownership. It'd be countercultural. because you hear all the time, you own this, you're going to own your house, you're going to own this. Yeah, God's going to give you the opportunity to own something in physical terms, but you are stewarding what he's given you the opportunity to do. So we're going to look at each of these things, stewardship, influence, and service, through this kind of chemistry model. Okay, I failed chemistry at Cedarville. That's why I'm not a biology major. Started out as a biology major. After one semester or quarter, it was like, time to switch to business, because chemistry was not my thing. But I did love the idea of bringing ingredients and seeing how things come together. So when I look at the Leadership Challenge, there are several things that this book says that people are looking for in leaders. And there are 5 C's and 1 E. So let me give them to you real quick, and then we're going to talk about them on each of these things. So number 1, conviction. Leaders need to be one of conviction, confidence, commitment, competence, courage, and then the E is emotional intelligence. That idea of, how am I being forward-thinking? How do I see the situation? So these are traits that in the book, The Leadership Challenge, since the 1980s, they have studied leaders, millions of leaders, and these 5 C's are ones that people would say, yeah, I want my leader to be one of conviction. So how do you lead with conviction when it comes to stewardship? 1, you got to believe that it's not yours, it's a God-given gift. And if it's a God-given gift, don't waste a gift. If it's a God-given gift, as John Piper says, don't waste your life. But the whole idea, if it's a God-given gift, serve with that gift. If it's a God-given opportunity, serve with that opportunity. Have that mindset. How do you do that with confidence? Well, you've got to realize and be okay with that God will provide. I know a lot of you are probably struggling financially right now. It doesn't get better when you get older. Houses are expensive. Cars are expensive. Kids are expensive. They get more expensive when the older that they get. But the confidence in that God says that he will provide. God says that he gives grace for today and mercy for today. Live in God's grace and mercy for today. That is how you show confidence in being a steward. Commitment. It's a moment-by-moment decision. You can't wake up this morning and go, yep, I'm going to be a good steward today, and not think about it the rest of the day. No, it's the time when you're in your office or the time that you're working on stuff for work and you're tempted to maybe pull out your social media and scroll through Instagram or stuff like that. Nothing wrong with the gram. Nothing wrong with that. But the idea of what our world needs to see now is that we're committed, that everything that we do when we're at work or I'm spending time with Danielle, the worst thing I can do is get out the phone. Because the opportunity to have a relationship is a stewardship. So that's 1. So commitment. Competence. This is the preparation. Every day I'm going to prepare because everything I have is a stewardship, so I got to work hard at that. Courage. I want to be unusual. And then an emotional intelligence with stewardship. Just being aware of what's around me. Because sometimes I forget what's around me. I get caught up in what I'm doing, pride. I get caught up in what I'm doing, thinking I own everything. And then automatically I forget that everything I have is a stewardship. So I think that requires emotional intelligence. All right, so let's jump to influence. Influence is the second part of the definition. I believe influence is the most important element. It's the glue between service and stewardship. You could be a great steward, you could be a great servant, but without influence, it doesn't matter. J. Oswald Sanders, in his book Spiritual Leadership, said, leadership is nothing more, nothing less than influence. It's who you influence, and it's who's influencing you. So the questions is how are you being influenced by others? Do you allow your friends to influence in you a way that pulls you away from Christ, or pulls you away from being excellent, or pulls you away from providing extraordinary effort? Are you that person that does that? Are you that person? It's good enough. We can get done with it. No. How are you influencing people? That's leadership. Go back to Ethan. Ethan leads us by how he influences us with his attitude. Keegan influences us, and how he does that is with his dedication to, like, I'm going to be a pilot and I don't care what stands in my way. Audrey leads us because she is so funny and fun that makes us realize that life is not always doldrums and bills and stuff like that. That's influence. So the question would be okay, going back to this recipe, this formula, How do you have influence with conviction? Number one, know your lines. We talked about ethics in management class the other day. I think one of the things that we do wrong as people and as leaders, we don't draw our lines, meaning like, this is my lines, and this is what I believe, and this is who I am because of whose I am, and I'm never going to slide on that. And because we don't draw our lines, we allow other people to influence us, and we're like a boat that's just getting bumped around, or a bumper car. So number one, draw your lines, know your lines. Confidence, understand whose you are. As a Christian, influence should be so driven by what God says in His Word, who God says you are, because God says right now that you are perfectly and wonderfully made. So there are people in this room, I've struggled with this. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do this well enough. Somebody's always better. That is a lie and a trap of the devil. It's a way to pull you back and to stifle your influence. And then when you feel that way, you're looking for other people to fill that, right? So you're allowing other people to influence you so that you feel good about yourself. Never forget, with confidence, whose you are. Commitment. This is where I say take ownership. Take ownership of your influence. Steward your influence. Don't allow your influence to cause somebody to go down the wrong path. You know, in Scripture where it says it's harmful it's worse for those people that lead little ones astray, right? It's better to have a millstone put around their neck. As a leader, your influence, don't lead somebody the wrong way. It matters. It really, really does. Competence, be someone others can trust. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. If they tell you something, make sure they know that you could trust them. Courage, don't bend the lines. So that's the 5 C's. And in emotional intelligence, I would ask these questions. What do you need from others? And what do others need from you? So today, what do I need from others and what do others need from me? That's emotional intelligence, and that allows me to use my influence in a different way. So we've got stewardship, we've got influence, and then the last one is service. So in service, I believe that service is the fruit of leadership. So you got stewardship, this is the mindset. You got influence, this is the growth. And you've got service, this is the fruit. Service is an outcome of leadership. So people that serve all the time, what's usually happening is they're not realizing they're actually leading. So what happens is a lot of times as young people, and I do the same thing, I just got to serve. No, you got to serve in the right way with the stewardship that God's given you. You got to influence through your service, and then you serve. So how do you use these 5 things with service? Well, conviction. Service is a habit. It's a habit. Don't say, well, one day when I get out of college and classes aren't busy and relationships aren't toxic or anything like that, I'll serve then. I'll serve in my local church then. You get busier and busier. And I wish I could tell you that life gets easier and easier. And this is not a doldrum, but it's the idea that you have to have habits. Service needs to be a habit. I use the example of General Reno a lot. If you watch General Reno walk around campus, if he sees a piece of paper, that man will not pass a piece of paper without picking it up. And there were times that I remember a story that he tells when we had Franklin Graham speak at commencement several years ago. Franklin Graham was walking around campus, and he was with General Reno, and he picked up a piece of paper, and General Reno said, "Oh, man, I should have picked that up." And he's like, "No, I'm a guest on your campus, and this is a beautiful campus, and I want to steward what God has given me." And I'm like, that's leadership. I don't always agree with Franklin Graham, but that is leadership. So how do you do this? Conviction, service is a habit, confidence. Be confident in your ability. A lot of times we don't serve because we don't think we're equipped. Just try. Be confident in your ability. Commitment, be active. Keep serving. Try. It's not, if it's going to be a habit, if you're going to get better at it, you grow in confidence because you're more competent. And the more confidence you have, the more competent you feel. You see how it's like a revolving door? And that's what it needs to be. So commitment, be active. Your competence, be growing. Look for ways to serve. So if you're at Renova, and you're new, look for ways to serve. It might be like you might have to ask questions at first. Hey, can I do this? Yeah. Ops, same thing. Can I do this? Info, same thing. Marketing, any group. In life, I'm sitting there at the house. Danielle's cooking. I'm not a good cook. I like doing dishes, but I'm a terrible cook. But the idea is like, I ask a lot is like, hey, what do you need from me? How can I help? Because I learned the hard way that my wife just really wants me to be active and involved. And in asking those questions, I'm giving her the opportunity to give me something I can steward. I'm influencing her, allowing her to influence in me, and we have a relationship that way. And then I'm serving. So be growing. Courage, take a chance on serving. I think a lot of times I've seen this happen where people go, well, I could do this, but I might be told no, or I might be rejected. How many times was Jesus rejected in the world? Take a chance, serve that way. And then in emotional intelligence, asking these questions again, like what is needed from you today and what do you need from others today? Can I tell you this about service? It's not about serving others, it's allowing people to serve you. I think one of the things that I know I struggle with, and probably some of you do, is that we're afraid to let other people serve us because we're trying to one-up their service. So the idea is allow people to help you, allow people to influence you. Because if you allow people to help you, you ask for help, you're allowing them to lead in your life. You allow them to help you, you're allowing them to have influence in your life. And then you're realizing that you're not all that in a bag of chips. So you're stewarding your life and not owning your life. You're actually leading in that way. So leadership is the whole idea of it is it's stewardship, it's influence, it's service. It's nothing more than that. So how do you do this? Well, you've got to know your leadership voice and your priorities. And I'm going to give you mine here in a second, then we're going to open it up to questions. But then we're going to talk about these 5 things over the next several months. If I'm going to steward, influence, and serve, I'm going to model the way. I'm going to inspire a shared vision. I'm going to challenge the process. I'm going to be willing to ask the question why. I'm going to enable others to act, and I'm going to encourage the heart. That is the leadership challenge broken down. But these 5 things of commitment, courage, competence, all the things that we talked about this morning, these are the elements of leadership. So for me, when people ask me, like, what do you base your leadership on? It's on these 5 things. Integrity is number 1, and I put down beside that, do what is right. And then my next one is empathy, and I said give a care. Work ethic, BBZ, loyalty, commitment, and honor, which is Romans 12:10. And innovation and creativity, dream, do what's next, get 1% better. So for me, when I'm making a decision, when it's based upon my influence, my stewardship, and my service, integrity, if it's going to cause me to bend on my integrity, I don't do it. But if it makes me be a disloyal friend, not going to do it. So these 5 things. So you need to figure out what are yours. And because when you go into modeling the way, people need to know who Donnie is. They need to know who Naomi is. They need to know who Luke is. They need to know who you guys are so that they can trust you. So leadership is stewardship, influence, and service.